Hello and welcome to the third episode of NitroNights. I'm your host this time around, Indiana Froskurinn Black, and we are still bringing you the hottest news from the racing world. Now tonight, I'm going to have a sit-down chat with Sebastian Job. We're talking the Porsche TagHeuer Esports Supercup, as well as getting a look ahead at some of the 2020 racing titles to come. But first, you know him, you love him, I have hardly met him. It's Tom Deacon with the news from last week.
Hey, Indiana. Thank you very much for having me back. Great to see you. I'm wearing my NitroNights hoodie, and I have to say, great to have you back in the studio. It looks absolutely epic in there. Very clean and tidy. Just a little FYI, if I was in charge of the studio, which I'm not, it would be very messy. Just a little fact there for you. Anyway, let me crack on with the Newsflash. That's what you've asked me to do. We'll kickstart with 2 wheels, then we'll move up to 4 wheels, and that is exactly where we'll stop. We're not having any more than 4 wheels on this news flash. We go to the VirtualMotoGP, which is taking place at Sivlerstone. A mixture of riders from the current rosters and a few past legends as well. 3 races taking place. It started with the Moto GP class. That kicked things off with a 10-lap race. And 5-time Moto GP champion Jorge Lorenzo led from pole and eventually won a wild and full of crashes race. He actually got taken out in lap 1, but managed to zip through and take the top podium spot. Race 2 was the Moto 2, and it was the Dutch hot prospect Bo Ben-Snyder winning the race. He led from start to finish, and Bo, and interestingly, second place Casimir Daniel were the only riders to not get a penalty. Say what? Crazy thing. Well done to both of those gentlemen. Little smiley emoji I'd put up right now for them. And finally, third race was the Moto 3. The dominant Italian Stefano Neppa was in storming form as he crossed the line 7 seconds ahead of second place Alcoba. Just to say, no British riders finished on the podiums. Yep, quite sad because it was the home of the British GP. But anyway, we move on. We head to the ABB Formula E RaceAtHome Series. Stoffel Vandoorne and the guys headed to NYC. Why do I mention Stoffel? Well, because in previous news flashes, I mentioned how he was a bridesmaid, never the bride. Did things change this week? Let's find out. Well, he got off to a cracking lead. By lap 5, he had a 5-second lead over Pascal Wehrlein. Then it was Oliver Rowland, then Neil Yarni. Now, lap 11 saw Wehrlein, Rowland and Yarni all go head-to-head in a wheel-banging sort of moment or two, and Pascal Wehrlein had to be very robust, which is a phrase I've not used often, actually ever, as he held on to second place, Oliver Rowland crossing the line in third. So, what does that mean for the standings? Oh, I forgot to mention, Stoffel Vandoorne won the race. He is no longer the bridesmaid, he is indeed the bride. Enjoy that honeymoon, Stoffel. Well, looking at the standings, Stoffel has 105 points in first place, with 1 point lead over Pascal Wehrlein, and in third place is Maximilian Gunther. He has 73 points. 2 more races left to go. Who will win? Cue massive question mark. We will soon find out. And third and finally, we have the SRO Esports GT Series 2020. 2 races at the weekend, one in the Pro, one in the Silver Series, 60-minute races in both. The fight was on in the Spanish circuit because, of course, it always proves difficult to overtake. But Delatraz gets redemption after narrowly missing out in the last race at Nürburgring, a race which he led from start to finish, but eventually got overtaken. Well, not this time. He won the race. Lorenzo, aka Leo Marucci, in second place. He got an overtake over Rougier 45 minutes in. So that means now Delatraz has a 10-point lead over Marucci. Now, in the Silver Series, Patrick Camara took the honours. His McLaren fellow drivers, Patrick Selva, took second, and Niels Nielks took third place. Season 3 champion of the F1 Esports Pro Series, David Tonitza, finished in 10th, meaning he slips down to third place. Come on, Tonitza, aka Tonzilla. We know you have got it in the locker. The third race, the next one, the final race will be taking place. It's up to you, the fans. So get on board, get involved, and choose which circuit they go to. Right, that's it for the NitroNights news flash. I'm hearing in my ear. Wait, what's that? That's not the end of the news. Apparently, Indiana, you have some more news. I've got nothing in my ear. What's the news, Indiana?
Thanks, Tom. The news is that this weekend also showcases Xbox partnership with the 2020 Special Olympics. Now, this saw 35 contestants from 11 different states competing in Forza Motorsport 7. And then immediately to the awards ceremony, they took to Minecraft to actually do it. So that's probably the most 2020 statement that I'm ever going to make. Huge congratulations to the competitors as well as the winners for showing us that anyone can be a racer. Now, we cover all sorts of competition on this show, and for the past few weeks, Sebastian Job has been racing racing towards the top of the Porsche TagHeuer Esports Supercup. And before we get a chance to sit down with him, you're going to get an in-depth look of how the event has gone.
There's already been 3 races in the Porsche Esports Supercup, but there's still 7 more to come. These 3 races, though, were packed to the brim with action and great racing moments.
At Spa-Francorchamps, here comes Job. Can he hang it? Yes, he can. Hold. Oh, Osgad's losing the back end.
Great move in the S's by Sebastian Job.
At the end of the first main race, Sebastian Job finished comfortably in first place. Barcelona was the second track to be raced on and painted a completely different picture from the first one. In quite a contrast to the first race, Job was nowhere to be seen at the top.
Runs wide in front of them. Big mistake from Sebastian on lap number 1, and before you know it, Josh Rogers makes it through along with a couple others.
Big Barcelona weekend for Max Benecchi. Max Verstappen takes second, a big weekend for him as well.
This time Max Benecchi managed to clinch victory with Max Verstappen in second place. From Spain to Great Britain for the third competition, this time with Job in pole position for the main race at Donington Park.
And already a big jump away at the start. On the outside and down on the grass, looked like a good getaway for Christopher Dambeats. He might have picked a position up, but through into second place goes Max Benecchi. The checkered flag is out for Sebastian Job. And the driver from East Grinstead takes a double victory at home in the UK.
Who else to win at Donington Park than a British driver? Job wins his second main race, this time without even once losing the top spot. The next race in the Porsche Esports Supercup is going to be on the legendary circuit of De La Sarthe in Le Mans, France on June the 13th. Definitely something you don't want to miss out on.
Thank you so much for that in-depth look at the Porsche TagHeuer Esports Supercup. Now, I am finally getting to sit down, not physically sit, video chat, with Sebastian Job, one of the top racers of the event, as well as a G2 Esports turned Red Bull Racing. G2 means a little bit more to me than Red Bull Racing, but that's fine. But Sebastian, thank you so much for sitting down. Wow, you even got your jersey on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. Got to represent the team brand. So, yeah, don't miss an opportunity.
So I was taking a peek at your social media, and you absolutely crushed it this last weekend. You've been doing phenomenally well. You have, I think, a third place finish at the iRacing World Cup. You also have a former Porsche Super Cup award underneath your belt, and you've only been racing with Red Bull Esports for about a year now. Can you kind of walk me through your competitive history with esports racing?
Yeah, so last year, I'll start with last year. I came third in the Porsche Esports Supercup before it became the Porsche TagHeuer Esports Supercup. I came third, and then in the same time, I came third in the VRS GT World Championship on iRacing. Before that, I never had a huge amount of success in the iRacing World Championships. I competed in them, had a podium. I don't know if it was more than one podium. I might be stretching it there. But last year it all came together and the results started to get better. I was still disappointed with third, but it's definitely a good step up from where I was previously, where it was just getting the odd podium here and there, competing, not doing the full seasons. But yeah, about 5 years now.
I saw in a previous interview that you have some karting experience before you moved over into esports or sim racing. Is that true?
Yeah, kind of. When I say karting experience, it's not the same as other people, unfortunately. It was just indoor rental karting with a little kart academy we had, which is where I learned kind of the basics. But we didn't have the budget to move up into the proper outdoor karting, the expensive stuff. So that's when I switched over to sim racing, starting with iRacing.
Is that the goal though? We have other esports racers that are kind of those hybrid drivers of competing in the sims as well as competing in real life tracks. Is that kind of where you want to land with your career trajectory?
I couldn't be further towards one side of wanting to get into real racing. I started sim racing just for that sole purpose, to try and win competitions that can get me into real racing. I managed it in 2018, where I got a year in Formula Ford. which was awesome, like as amazing as you would expect. And last year I had the Was Fast Gamer, which I unfortunately didn't win. But everything that I do is kind of working towards getting a real seat in racing.
You talked about how your karting skills, or at least kind of dabbling in it, transferred fairly easily to the esports racing world. I haven't really gotten a chance to sit down one of these sims, but is there a particular reason why you stay with iRacing? I hear that drivers find like the cars that they like, the tracks that they like, and they try to get that most real life experience. Is that kind of why you gauge towards iRacing versus some of the other racing sims?
To be honest, when you change to another game, you have to learn the quirks of the game. Not every game is the same, In an ideal world, every game would be perfectly realistic, but that's not the case. Some have their own flaws. Some are, flawed in one way and another's flawed in another way, and you have to learn how to exploit everything about it. And you can kind of switch between them, but you have to then readapt every single time. And this was possible a couple years ago. One of my teammates, Yanni, he was like dominating on every game he touched, but now the level has just gone up even further. You just can't do it. You have to stick to one game if you want to be the absolute best on that game. And especially on iRacing, the level is so high that you just can't do that anymore.
See, as someone who's kind of coming over from the other esports world, I was kind of putting my toe in and I was like, someone surely has looked at all of the different titles and has had figured out how to like break the game, like found the OP car or the OP strategy. Does that actually exist, or is it really just, you find what car really suits you?
There's setups. You can change the setup of the car, which was something we really struggled with last year, and we've kind of cracked it almost this year. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, even though we've cracked it, we're still not way faster than everyone else. We're still the same pace as the top guys. There's no one that's got a half a second advantage or 0.2 advantage. Everyone is just so close. The whole grid is separated by a tiny amount. So maybe there's something, but it's not been discovered yet if there is. And on other games, it's kind of the same. I can't think of any game where there's someone that's just found some trick that's way faster than everyone else. It just doesn't happen now.
In the last weekend driving, you, again, on your social media, from what I could tell, you basically got the lead pretty much right away, and then you never let up. When you're kind of in those situations, I hear that there's different styles of driving. You have those really aggressive drivers that are constantly trying to push, taking more risks, but then expose themselves to potentially being overtaken because they're losing time as they try to continue to push. Or you have hyper-consistent drivers who find their line, basically sit in their pocket and kind of coast through. When you're in a high-pressure situation like that, where you're starting to create a lead, you're opening up a gap, are you just focusing on consistency? Are you trying to push, the limit of your car and get faster and faster?
It depends on the situation a lot. In race 1, I took it quite easy because, no offense to the guy, but I had Alex behind me and I know he's not as fast as Josh. So I was kind of balancing the gap a bit. I was just slowly edging it out, not pushing to the absolute limit. And then when Josh was behind me, I knew, right, I got to push. And so I just stepped it up a bit. Josh was obviously pushing as well, and the gap just stayed the same. But it really depends on the situation. Luckily, over the years, I had a bit of a reputation for screwing up in those situations where I'd spin out a lot. But I think that's a good thing. It forced me to really improve my driving. It was just all I ever got to refer. Well, almost every time I watched a broadcast, it got mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so I've been forced to fix it because I just couldn't stand listening to it. And so kind of led to being very consistent.
Everyone hates those narratives that they can't really shake.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm really glad that you bring up, if you've got Rogers behind you, that you change up your driving style. Is the community so tight-knit that you feel that everyone on the track, you really have a good feeling for what type of strategy you're going to take when you get those moments?
Kind of, yeah. We race each other in more than just one series. Like, we'll race in the Porsche, and then there's another series that we'll race in, and it will be the exact same drivers at the front. And then when we go to another event that's on LAN, it'll be the same drivers at the front. You kind of get a very good idea of what to expect from everyone. You can go in knowing this guy's going to be fast, this guy's going to be aggressive. So yeah, definitely.
And of course, it is time now for the quickfire round. And now, Sebastian, I'm just going to ask questions. You just got to lightning speed riddle off the answers. So first and foremost, favorite car?
Porsche 911 Cup car.
Okay, favorite track?
Silverstone. Yeah, Silverstone.
And favorite real racer?
I don't really have any, to be honest. I kind of just watch everyone and just enjoy the racing. I don't have a preference.
Any like past racer that really stood out to you?
Schumacher. I was a big fan of Schumacher.
Okay. Favorite race that you've competed in?
We'll go with Silverstone last year in the Porsche Supercup.
I can tell that you have really strong, just immediate opinions on these. Okay. Fish and chips or Sunday roast?
Sunday roast.
With like
That's a hard
gravy,
one.
like what's the best part of it?
Chicken. If you got chicken roast, then that's the best bit.
That is very fair. Okay, so we're going to take a very quick break and have an in-depth view now at the 2020 racing titles that are coming your way.
Though we're almost halfway through 2020, there are still some big racing game releases ahead of us. While some don't yet have a release date, you'll hopefully find them in the stores this year. The reboot of Trackmania Nations is now just called Trackmania and revs its engines on July the 1st. The gameplay formula stays the same. You're aiming to get the best lap time in stadium-themed levels with no physical opponents. The basic version of the game will be free to play. But for even more content, including the famous level editor, you'll have to buy an annual license. Our next game on the list is probably the most anticipated racing game in the near future, Formula 1 2020. It has 2 brand new tracks with Zandvoort and the Hanoi Street circuits, as well as probably the most dynamic and complete career mode this series has ever seen. Whether you just want to drive or manage your team in every way, this game will let you do exactly that. There aren't many things PlayStation racing fans are anticipating as much as the new Gran Turismo game. Though nothing's been confirmed yet, the community firmly believes a new GT will be launched alongside the PS5 at the end of this year. Digital director Kazunori Yamauchi has recently expressed his desire to run the game with a minimum of 120 frames per second. He even might be willing to drop graphics detail to reach that goal. Speaking of graphics, Gran Turismo will come up against a serious rival in Forza Motorsport 8. We don't know much about the new Forza game yet, let alone a release date. What has already been leaked is that developer Turn 10 will most likely work with photogrammetry and real-time rendered skyboxes to create the most beautiful racing game ever. Last but not least, we take a look at Dirt 5. After releasing Dirt Rally 2.0 in 2019, developer Codemasters now returns to the much more overdriven approach of this series. The release trailer looks even more over the top than Dirt 4 and might appeal to a much broader audience. These are only the biggest names to drop in the sector of racing games this year, but we can assure you in any case, there's a lot more to come.
Now, it may not be Mario Kart, but some of those titles do look particularly interesting. I was a big Dirt fan back in middle school, so it's been a while now that it's like Dirt 5. Sebastian, when you see kind of like the B-roll there of all those titles coming out, is there anything that you immediately jump for, like that you're like, I'm going to play that game, or are you like, okay, new titles coming out, but I'm going to stick with the tried and true iRacing?
I probably won't touch them too much. I'll give them a go. I'm quite interested to try F1 2020 because I've heard that the ERS and fuel is a lot less fiddly. You're not changing it so much, and that's been my main problem with the game in the past. I just didn't enjoy changing it all the time. So I'm quite looking forward to that, actually, giving that a go.
Do you think that, because in that advertisement, it talks about the graphics of the game, do you think that really particularly matters for not just esports racing, but just kind of the enjoyment of the game?
I really don't care about the graphics at all. I normally turn down my graphics almost all the way to get the most frames per second just to make sure I don't get any stutters. It's not that I need more frames per second. I just don't want to risk Like, I feel like if you're on a higher graphics setting, you're more likely to have a freeze or something. So I don't want any risks.
It's always a very different world when you talk to the professional players, because it does feel that way, where the like average player goes in, they like get their brand new PS5, like, I just want to see everything. I've got to see like the sun reflecting off the confetti. And you talk to pro players, they always put their graphics on the lowest setting for any game that they play because they don't want anything to distract from the competition. Yep. In terms of like other tools, like if it's not other titles that are coming out outside the F1 title, with the whole virtual reality, I'm assuming that you play in like the traditional play seat, that you've got the wheel and the gloves. Would you ever consider moving towards the full experience, like the headset and the virtual reality helmet?
I've got one, but I've never used it for racing, actually. It's kind of something I need to try. But the reason I've not done it so far is because everyone, except for one person that I know, everyone has gotten slower with it, and they've gone back to what they had before, and they've gone faster. But there's a driver in the Porsche series that's using it, called Brian, and he's incredibly fast, and he uses I think it's an Oculus Rift, so it might be worth a go. It's definitely something to try in the future, just for the enjoyment side. Maybe not competitive, I don't know.
What do you think's missing in terms of how to get that feedback to the esports racing ones, or the sim racing games, versus like the real life racing? Do the virtual helmets are they disorienting? Is it different feedback mechanisms through like the rumble features? What would you say is kind of the next evolution for your guys' equipment?
That's a tricky one.
Sorry, I didn't mean to just throw you like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously, you're lacking the G-forces. You could get motion rigs. There's already motion rigs, but when I've used them, I've never felt connected to the road. I've always disliked them. I never felt like they benefited me. They were either delayed, or there was just the feedback you got it didn't feel like, yeah, this is what I expect to feel. When you deal with like a VR headset, it's more the resolution's a bit low, I think. I don't know if that's a problem at the moment. I think they've kind of improved that, but I don't know. There's something about it that is just lacking a little bit.
And in terms of then like the evolution now of esports racing, what do you think kind of the next steps are? Because, you know, in some of the tournaments or the series or the events, they have these big cash buyout or cash payouts. You now have more endemic sponsors like Red Bull Racing getting involved. Do you think it's now at like the sponsorship level that you just want to see more actual corporations buying in? Do tournaments need to be more like standard yearly popping out? Like what does the ultimate esports racing landscape look like to you?
I would want to see more LAN events. What F1 Esports does is really good in that aspect. And I would love to see it on iRacing, you know, every round being on LAN rather than online, because then you get a feel for the competitors. You see their faces more. You get more storylines almost. It gets people more involved if they can see you. Whereas if you're just watching a game and there's no visual look at the players, then it's hard for the viewer to get connected to it as easily as if it wasn't, or if it was, sorry.
No, I totally agree. I think the narrative element has been brought up multiple times where I'm listening to the esports racing community. So hopefully we will get to that point where I get to see you in studio and get to see you participate on LAN. Till then, thank you so much, Sebastian Job, for participating with us. Do you have any final words for your farewell?
No, just thank you very much for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Plug, Sebastian, plug.
So twitter.com/G2Sebi. I would plug my Twitch, but I don't really use it anymore. So if you want to follow me, the main place is definitely Twitter.
Totally fair enough. So if you want to follow Sebastian G2Sebi, but for now, we're actually going to say farewell to him and take a stroll over to our social showroom. Now remember, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, that if you also want to see yourself on the social showroom, you can tweet at us at NitroNights, and be sure to use the hashtag NitroNights. And without further ado, let's see what we got. To be fair, when I was first getting into iRacing, sim racing, esports racing, whatever you want to call it, it did look a lot like this to me. And these marbles do tend to stay more on the track than what I've seen from some of the races with the cars flying in the air. 20 million faces of Tom Deacon. And you can check out some of those crazy outfits. He's got a pink jumper. He has leopard print collar in there. I think it's Fred Perry in bottom right. That is a wealth of a lot of outfit going on. Next. Wholesome YouTube comments. That is a sentence no one ever thought would come out of my mouth, but there it is. Thank you very much, good sir. And finally, a wholesome Twitter comment from Actual Vision. Excellent name. That is slick. And I absolutely agree. The production have done a phenomenal job with the show. The studio is gorgeous. I have not contributed a single thing to this, but I'll pretend it was all me, and it is slick. Now that said, that's going to be our farewell or good night. I'll leave it right there. So until next time, be sure to tune in every single week on Wednesday for more NitroNights and more of the hottest racing news. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.